You know, there's one thing that always stuck in my craw for all my life since that occasion in Vietnam, and that was a situation that happened in a firefight where there was about 5 of the enemy was up on this ridge, on this little ravine on the other side of this ravine, and we fired them up and got them all, but we wasn't sure, so we had to go down to into this ravine and come back up to the other side. And on the other side was, well, in this area there was a lot of leaves on the ground, and I was walking up without looking down. You know, you're not looking down, you're looking around to see if you're going to run into something, buddy. And as I went, and these guys were already, you know, shot, were killed up on this ridge. So I was walking up this, on the other side of this little ravine, and a lot of leaves, like I said, a lot of leaves. And as I stepped up to, you know, a few steps up this ridge, I slipped, and when I slipped down on one knee, I looked down, it was like something warm was on my knee, and I looked down and it was this guy's brains, and it was just warm, you know, it's still warm, and I brushed it off, and that stuck with me, still does, for years and years. I mean, it was really devastating for a while. So that was one of the things that happened that I can never forget. It's in the sun, you know, it's, and I can almost feel it now, you know.
As a veteran, with those, did you ever have any flashbacks?
Oh yeah, a lot of
post-stress.
It took a long time for that to end. In fact, every now and then, you know, but you know, it's strange. Now that if I have flashbacks, it's not there. It's here in this country. In fact, back on the res, I could see. One night I had a dream of the enemy was out, you know, I have a great video done, and they was at the other end, and they was firing up at us, and it was really weird how it came out, but it was part of the, you know, in your mind how it works after the aftermath of I guess this stressful life you had to live in Vietnam.
And as a veteran, did you have family, or were there other family members in the military?
Oh yeah.
Your family?
Well, there was 3 brothers, and all 3 were in the Army. You know, one was in 82nd, I was in 101st, and my youngest brother, he was in the engineers, but and I was in there. I went there in January of 1968, just in time for the Tet. And my brother was just coming back when I first, on January 5th, 1967, he was getting discharged from the Army, and I was going in the same day. Isn't that strange? And I was going in, and he was coming out, and he was in between us. He was the middle brother, but he went in early. And then and then I got involved in the 101st, how, you know, you don't plan it, but it comes out that way. And it was a good experience at first, very good experience. I liked it, but and I used to tell my friends, you know, that was in the military too, but they never went to Vietnam. And I said, well, I went through basic AIT jump school, and all of that was, I was in a junior varsity. Then when I went to Vietnam, I made it to the varsity team. We used to talk in that manner, you know. But I got 2 Bronze Stars, Air Medal.
You're decorated.
Air Medal, yeah, and Army Commendation. And but you know, I never, really fortunate, I never got any Purple Heart. Although I got hit a couple of times, you know, not serious enough, like a shrapnel from a grenade or stuff like that. But it wasn't serious enough to me to be sent back to the rear for anything, because there's other guys that was hurt a lot worse than I was.
And when you came back from Vietnam, did you ever run into any protesters or people that
well,
disagreed with your service?
Yeah, a lot of it. The very first time I came back from it, I was at the airport I got a taxi to come home to where I lived at. And on the way in, this taxi driver was constantly putting me down, constantly talking bad about military people. I mean, I needed a ride, otherwise we would have never made it.
Yeah.
But I just put up with this bad attitude toward veterans or military people, and I was so glad to get out of that cab. And then the day I was supposed to go back to Fort Bragg, that's when this two girls came into the barbershop where I was getting a haircut on 7th Street in San Francisco, and they walked into the barbershop through this, probably was a milkshake, I'm not sure what it was, but it threw it all in my uniform, which I was dressed to go back home on. I always remember those things, and I said, and then we chased them down the street, but that I just didn't want to do that either. So.
And recently, we've been trying to work with our veterans in Central California, Northern California, and a few years ago we started the parade in Petaluma. We asked the commander down there, kind of, where is your color here? We see lots of non-Indians, we see lots of organizations. Do you have any Native Americans or Hispanics marching? And Great Commander said, well, not really. I said, how about if we work on getting some of our Native Americans involved? And recently, you were selected as the Honor Veteran.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, that was great. I mean, when you come back from a war and everybody's looking down on you, and then just these parades now and being honored, it's really a thrill. I mean, it's something that you never would think in your whole life that was ever going to happen. So that was good, really good.
I noticed that you and your brother had a chance to sit next to that. They call it the ceremonial veterans dugout. How did you feel about that? Yeah,
that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that, and since this was my second time at the parade, before it even started, in a couple of weeks, you reminded me of it. I said, I just hope that they bring the canoe down. I mean, to me, that was really neat. And it was there, so that made the whole thing right.
And with our veterans scattered out to the tribes and rancherias, sometimes do you have a chance to get together with other veterans?
Yeah, a lot. In fact, over in Robinson, it's been a while now with that occasion, but they had a Veterans Day dinner for the veterans, and I went to that, and it was really good. In fact, there's Nelson Hopper. I don't know if you know him, but he's an old veteran from World War II.
I think so. I think I met him.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he passed away just recently, and he lived to be 100 years old. 100 years old, and he was there.
Good medicine.
Yeah. And he wanted to know why he lived so long. But I mean, can you imagine he went to 2 wars and still made it. And anyway, he was a good incentive for the veterans, because he always pushed people into getting away from not telling anything, like most of us do. Don't tell anything about ourselves.
How about your brother? He was with you at this last parade. Did he enjoy himself?
Oh yeah, him and his wife, they were just into this really heavy, you know. And he likes it a lot, but you know, it's too bad that he couldn't have made it up here for this.
Well, we're going to try to catch him before we end this, because we're still going up north and we still got a couple more things to do, Ed. And we're trying to do a nice short video for our Native Americans so we can get it out in the community and share with people and let them know that we're not only proud of our veterans, but they're still active and they enjoy the parades too.
Oh yeah, you know, it's. I just wish that, you know, I informed a whole bunch of people about veterans, about the parade in Petaluma, and I said, you gotta come on down and just give it a shot. You know, you might just one time at least. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'll be there. I mean, I talked to maybe 20 or 30 guys.
Well, believe it or not, as we move down through the parade route, with the Sonoma Indian Health Group making recommendations for the parade too, plus the people that we're in contact with, I saw a lot more skins along the sidewalk. They didn't necessarily want to march with us, but they wanted to go be a part of the parade and see the parade that folks come through.
I know what you're saying, because I've seen a bunch of guys yelling at me because we know it. You know, I know a lot of guys that are in the were in the military, and I said, why aren't you guys? You know, I said, why aren't you guys there? And they said, well, we didn't know about it. You know, that's their excuse. You know, because they don't. They're sort of. I don't know what it is about it is. They just don't want to be showing off themselves. You know, I think that's a major problem.
And I think, Ed, one of the last things that we're thinking about doing.
That's amazing.
That's time. It's time for us to cut. Yes, we want to extend our effort down to the Southern Cal tribes.
Oh,
Would you be interested in working with us on that?
I ran into a guy at Pechanga. He was the chairperson for the Southern Tribes.
Yeah.
He gave me his address, and he gave me some paperwork to be part of the tribe down there. I mean, part of the Southern organization.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name, but he gave me a plaque of their Southern chapter.
Okay.
And I thought that was pretty neat, but gosh, I wish I could remember his name.
Share some of that information with us, and we'll do some research and see if we can identify them and get them on board with us.
Yeah, you know, he gave me this application to join with them, and I'm not sure if that has the address on it, but if it does, I'll sure make use of it.
I have two more points that I'd like to make with this, Ed. I understand you're an artist.
Well, I like to think that I am.
One of the things that we're working on, since we've got a number of things in our parade, is we want to put together a Native American flag with our colors. You think you'd be interested in helping us with that?
Well, I heard you mention that before. In fact, probably during the parade time last November, and ever since I've been thinking every day, almost every day, I've been trying to think of what would be appropriate, because you can't just have tribal. It can't be a tribal thing. It has to be a all tribe thing. You know, it can't be just one tribe.
Encompass them all.
And it's still in my mind. I'm trying to find the right mode for the, you know, to make it.
We have a couple ideas. A nice emblem, maybe a symbol, maybe a streamer for each one of the tribes that participate. Different color schemes that are close to our Native Americans in this area.
Right.
Our last point, Ed, one of the things that our Native Americans strongly believe in is our not only our culture and our people and our ceremonial and burial grounds, but when you went to Vietnam, did any of the elders or another veteran give you something or make some medicine for you so you would return safely?
Yeah, I remember, like it was my uncle who gave me this pouch, and he said, "This will keep you from. You should keep this, and you'll be able to come home on a safe." And I thought to myself, okay, I'll keep this, not thinking too much about it, because there's so many other things that was going on then. But once I got there, and once there's so many different situations that came up where I shouldn't be here talking, I thought about that pouch coming, when I got back home, and I don't know whatever happened to it, but it brought me home. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's a very.
And it was after I got here, I started to get more into the Indian ways, because I was brought up in a different environment, and that's why I can't speak my own language. I'm just learning a lot of things cultural-wise for me. And since I've been up here, I learned a lot, because I was more or less sort of like raised in a city as such. You sort of you don't really lose it inside of you, but you lose
contact.
Yeah, with a lot of things and people. But now I'm getting back into, or not even getting back, I'm just learning a lot of things that I needed and should have known.
Well, I think, Ed, that as a veteran, which we thank you for your service, as a community person where you can be proud to be a veteran for your service and the things that you did.
Yeah.
And I guess in closing, I understand you're a decorated veteran. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I don't. When I first came back, I had these little boxes with medals in them, and I didn't have much use for them because of the war situation, And I said, why was I allowed to let myself do this, But it took a long time for me to make it change to that. I was glad I'm a veteran. But before that, and so I got these, like I said, I got a couple of Bronze Stars and an Air Medal and an Army Commendation, but it was just something, and I can't understand why I was in the infantry and got an Air Medal. But that's because of so many helicopter trips, to hot LZs, and I think that's mainly what brought that on. But it was, and I was going to mention something about my dad. He was, I asked him one time after I came back from Vietnam, I said, how did you feel that you had 3 sons in the Army at almost virtually the same time in a war? And he says, well, you just don't think about it. You think about all kinds of things, but you try not to think about that, I said, if that was me, I'd be going crazy. I said, wondering about how my kids could do, but
Gonna make it home safely.
yeah, but we all did, and it was good. It was a good thing for him to know that we made it.
Yeah.
Or him and my mother, but there's a situation that came up. I really wanted to, while I was in Vietnam, we came back to the rear area, so that's such as was called. We didn't really have one, but came back to a fire base, and there were so many of us we didn't have nowhere to go because they had nowhere to put us. So we were just sitting around, and this little Vietnamese boy, he was about 8 or 9 years old, came and he wanted some food, and all these guys were telling me, get the hell away, get away from me and all this, and I said, I came over and I gave him some cans of, sea rations where we had, and they asked me, what are you doing that for? It's the enemy would be making bombs out of this cans. I said, no, he won't do that. It's a little guy. He's hungry. I mean, you guys are thinking in the wrong direction. And it's pushing him around. I said, don't you do that anymore. Leave him alone. I said, this reminds me, in my mind, I said, this reminds me of how the U.S. Army treated my people in back in the day, before in this country. And I said, I don't want to see that happen with you guys anymore. And they said, okay, well, and they left it alone. But I always remember that, how, I thought to myself, so this is, I could imagine that being me. And it was pretty, calmed them down, made them quit.
Well, that's important.
Yeah.
Because the pride there, when Walt Lara, he talked about the parade in 1991 where we brought the first redwood douglas in, he said, we're going to march if nobody else marches. If the white people don't want to march, we're going to march because we're proud. We want our people to know we're proud, and that's just how we feel.
Yeah, I really could understand. You know what happened was that here, anywhere, everywhere, there were so many Vietnam veterans, mainly at the time, that nobody paid attention to the Indian people. And then I started this thing up here for the veterans. We had one occasion where we had up at Carl Purdy Hall, we had a dinner, and I don't think, did you did?
I still got my little plate.
Yeah, that's neat. And I wrote down, and I went to the 3 counties. Actually, should have been the whole state, but it was to start off with. Was can use 3 counties: Sonoma, Mendocino, and Lake. And in those 3 counties, we got over, I believe it was around 600 veterans but this is from World War I, II, and Vietnam, and it was up to that point then. No, it wasn't Iraq and the rest, because there's been a lot of Indians in Iraq, and there's recent wars as well. But can you imagine? I'd called all of the rancheries, reservations around, and they'd try to get a list of all the people that they remember or could remember about.
Somebody mentioned food,
yeah.
So much more Indians.
And it was amazing how many people were wanted to get involved in finding out more about their own tribe. I mean, their own rancheria. How many was in the veterans in that? Because I don't think nobody paid attention. And besides, most Indian people never brought it up. Once you came back from a war, that was it. Nobody thought about it. They might have said, well, he was a veteran, but that was it. Nobody said, nobody tried to explain much about why there was so many Indian people. I was looking in reading up on how many Indians per capita of the population were in wars opposed to the rest of the country, and it was a lot more than the average.
I know in terms of decorations, the Native American veterans are highly decorated.
Yeah.
Much more so in a lot of the units in all the different branches of service because of their bravery. I remember walking point, and the way they would say that, get the chief out there.
Yeah.
Or send the scout out.
I remember when I walked point for 10.5 months.
Oh.
And the first time I did that, the captain came over to me and says, "You're walking point today." I said, I don't know anything about walking point. He says, "Yeah, but you're Indian." I said, "Yeah, but I'm an urban Indian." He says, "I don't care. Get out there."
Oh God, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think we may have one more question for you, but back to the flag. Let us work with that because there's a lot of pride.
Yeah.
I can just see our parade group coming down And with that, it's important to know that as soon as we can think about maybe having a nice parade here in this area for some of the older veterans to get out and participate, we'll do that. I'll commit to that, okay?
Yeah. There's been a lot of them passing away lately, though.
I noticed that.
There's one thing I wanted to mention about the American flag. I went to an occasion where they were talking about the American flag, and I said, I fought for the flag, but I'll never wave it. I don't want to. I said, I don't want to demean it in any way, but it's just the only reason I'm saying it is because for every star on that flag, there's been an atrocity against Native Americans in that state. In that, on each one of those flags represents an atrocity to us as Indian people. Other than that, I said, you know, I would never demean it in any other way. You know, it's just that point I just wanted to bring out.
No,
and people took it. A lot of people took it the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
but they don't understand the history.
Yeah.
And when you have an opportunity like that to make that point and point it out and add some clarification to it, it's good for people to know.
Yeah. It's
how our people were treated.
Right.
The thing that I was going to close with, Ed, the people along the Upper Klamath River, they were a poor people, but they gave up their sons and their daughters. That's why I joined. Went in the Marine Corps when I was 16, because I was told that it's good, son, that you fight for your country. And one of my uncles was one of the first ones killed on Saipan. And my other uncle was severely wounded in the African campaign. My dad was a squid. I enjoy working with you doggies. But it's important to know that our people have always been there to protect and save our ceremonial burial grounds. It's always important to know that our people were the first to be the protectors of our people and to honor our tribes. And one of the ways that our young men, when they went into the service, that was a way to become a warrior, a brave, and sometimes a decorated chief. But again, I wanted to thank you for your service, Dad.
And I appreciate what you're doing. It's really good. It's really great, and it might bring out more people to understand that maybe where we were in the war years. You know, we're always there. We're always there. I think in the overall situation, the way it is now, and what you're doing, is really, it's really enthusiastic to me because it brings back the things that we never got when we first came back, and now that I think more people are getting involved in understanding the veterans themselves. You know, because before it was in the Vietnam era people, they never got much notoriety on anything except being called the names, which we didn't need. And now it's been a long time, but it's coming around to the point where feel better or feel more at ease with your inner self. You know, making it it's just something that you don't forget. You know, forever. War, you never forget, but it eases the pain of the neglect that you got when you finally came home. That's the best part. Now,
well, I want you to know, as a veteran to veteran, and it's been first of all a privilege to work with you.
Yeah.
Secondly, to be able to thank you for your service is important for other veterans to know that we're doing something special so that they can be proud And as we continue to talk to more families and the work that you're doing in the community and sharing stories with the younger generation, it means a lot. And I want to thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for what you're doing. You're putting a lot of effort into keeping this alive, and I appreciate that. It makes you feel good about it. You make you feel better about yourself. You feel proud to be a veteran again.
Okay.
Before it was sort of doubtful. Why was I even into this? Nobody cared. Now it's a lot better.